Last summer, I pulled just over 90 pounds of ripe tomatoes off 4 plants growing in a single raised bed. And the year before that, with the same varieties in the same bed, I barely cleared 30. The soil was the same. The seeds were the same. The sun was the same. The only thing I changed was how I watered them, and that one shift turned a frustrating, crack-filled, blossom-end-rotted mess into the best tomato harvest I had ever grown. And here is what is going to surprise you. The watering mistake that almost certainly silently destroying your tomato harvest right now is not underwatering. It is not overwatering either. It is something far more specific, and once you see it, you cannot unsee it. Most home gardeners are watering their tomatoes every single day a little bit at a time, and they think they are doing the right thing. They are not. They are slowly starving the plant, weakening the root system, and setting up nearly every tomato problem you can name, from cracked skins to that ugly black patch on the bottom of the fruit. Today, I'm going to walk you through exactly how I water my tomatoes now, the simple shift that changed everything, and the specific timing, depth, and frequency that turns ordinary plants into producers. And stay with me to the end, because I am going to share a buried bottle trick I picked up from an old market gardener that delivers water directly to the deep roots while you sleep, costs almost nothing to set up, and works in any garden bed or container you have. So let me back up and tell you how I figured this out, because I did not get here from reading a book. I got here from messing it up for nearly 15 years. For most of my gardening life, I watered my tomatoes the way my dad watered his, and the way most folks on my block still do. Every evening after dinner, I would walk out with the hose, give each plant what felt like a generous splash, and call it done. The leaves looked green. The soil on top looked dark. I figured I was being a responsible plant parent, and every single year by mid-July I had the same problems. Bottom rot on my Romas, skins splitting on my Better Boys, yellowing leaves climbing up the stems, plants that flowered like crazy in June, and then just kind of stalled out by August. I blamed the weather. I blamed the variety. I blamed the soil. I bought calcium supplements. I sprayed things. None of it really worked. Then, a few summers back, I read a piece of research out of the University of California Cooperative Extension that talked about tomato root depth and how the plant actually takes up water. And it completely reset my thinking. If you have been watering your tomatoes the way I used to, I want you to hear me clearly. You are not failing. You are doing what almost everyone does. You just have not been told the part nobody talks about. Here is the part nobody talks about. A mature tomato plant, when grown the right way, can send roots down 2 to 3 feet into the soil. That is not a houseplant. That is a deep-rooted, drought-tolerant fruiting plant that evolved in the arid valleys of South America. Its whole system is designed to hunt for water deep underground. But when you sprinkle a little water on the surface every evening, you are training the roots to stay shallow, right at the top, 2 or 3 inches, where the moisture is. And shallow roots cannot regulate water uptake the way deep roots can. They cannot pull calcium efficiently. They dry out the moment the sun hits them. And they make your plant a roller coaster, soaking wet at 6 p.m., bone dry by noon the next day. That swing, that wet, dry cycle, is the real killer. Blossom end rot is not a calcium deficiency in the soil. It is almost always a calcium delivery problem caused by inconsistent moisture. Cracked tomatoes are the same story. The fruit grows slowly during a dry stretch, then the plant gets a sudden gulp of water, and the fruit swells faster than the skin can stretch. So it splits. After 3 seasons of testing this, I can tell you, the fix is not more water. It is the right water, at the right depth, on the right rhythm. Once you understand this, every step that follows makes perfect sense. So now let me show you exactly how to do it. Here's what you need to understand before we even pick up the hose. The first thing you have to do is stop guessing about whether your tomato plant needs water. The top inch of soil tells you almost nothing. It dries out fast in the sun, even when the soil 6 inches down is perfectly moist. So the very first habit I want you to build is the finger test, but done correctly. Stick your index finger straight down into the soil, about 2 inches away from the main stem, and push it in as deep as it will go, ideally up to the second knuckle, which is roughly 3 to 4 inches. If the soil feels cool and slightly damp, like a wrung-out sponge, you do not need to water. If it feels dry and crumbly all the way down, it is time. If it feels soggy and you can squeeze water out, you have already overdone it and you need to back off for a day or two. If you garden in a container or a smaller raised bed, you can also lift the pot or the corner of the bed if it is portable. A well-watered container is heavy. A dry one feels light. After a week of doing this, you will start to read your tomatoes the way you read the weather. The conventional advice is to water on a schedule. What I have found works better is to water on a condition. The schedule is just a reminder to check, not a command to soak. Now let me show you how to actually deliver the water once your finger tells you it is time. This is where most people go wrong, and it is the single biggest shift you can make today. Stop watering a little. Start watering a lot, less often. When I water a mature tomato plant in midsummer, I am giving it somewhere between 1 and 2 gallons per plant, slowly, right at the base, every 3 to 5 days. Not a splash every night. A deep, deliberate soak twice or maybe 3 times a week. Here's why that matters. When you put down a full gallon at the base of the plant slowly, the water has time to soak down 12 to 18 inches into the soil. The deep roots get a real drink. And when the surface dries out a day or two later, the roots have to chase the moisture downward, which makes them deeper, stronger, and far more resilient. You are training the plant to be drought tough instead of drought fragile. The way I do it is simple. I use a regular garden hose with the nozzle off, set it on a slow trickle, and lay it right at the base of the plant. I let it run for about 2 to 3 minutes per plant, then move on. If you have a soaker hose or drip line, even better. Just make sure the water is going to the soil, not the leaves. Wet leaves invite fungal disease, especially early blight and septoria leaf spot, and they are some of the fastest ways to lose a tomato plant in July. Water the dirt, not the plant. And one more thing. Water in the morning if you can, ideally between 6 and 9 a.m. The soil has time to absorb it before the heat of the day, the leaves dry off quickly if any splashes up, and the plant goes into the hot afternoon fully hydrated. Evening watering is not the end of the world, but morning is the gold standard. Before we go any further, I want to take just a moment, because what I am sharing with you today is one piece of a much larger approach to growing your own food without wasting money or effort. If you have enjoyed this so far, I put together a complete guide called the 30-Day Kitchen Scrap Garden Protocol. It is a 171-page book that walks you through 31 regrowable crops you can start from kitchen scraps, a $10 starter kit guide, zero-waste kitchen strategies, and full troubleshooting support for when things go sideways. You can grab it for $17 by scanning the QR code on your screen right now or clicking the link in the description below. All right, let us keep going because the next part is where the real harvest gets locked in. Now that you are watering deeply and on condition, the next thing I want you to do is mulch. And I mean really mulch. This is the single highest leverage move I make every spring, and it is the difference between watering twice a week and watering 5 times a week. Once your tomato plants are about a foot tall and the soil has warmed up, lay down 2 to 3 inches of organic mulch over the entire root zone. I like straw, shredded leaves, or grass clippings that have dried for a few days. Keep the mulch about 2 inches away from the main stem itself so you do not trap moisture against the bark and invite stem rot. But cover everything else. What this does is genuinely remarkable. It cuts evaporation from the soil surface by as much as 70%, according to studies out of Cornell University. It keeps the root zone 15 to 20 degrees Fahrenheit cooler on hot days, which is huge in zones 7 through 10, where summer soil can get punishingly hot. It suppresses weeds, and as the mulch breaks down, it feeds the soil biology that helps your tomatoes pull nutrients more efficiently. I have grown tomatoes with mulch and without it side by side, and the mulched plants needed roughly half the water and produced noticeably more fruit. It is not even close. If you are in a cooler zone, like 3 through 5, do not rush this. Wait until the soil has warmed to at least 60 degrees Fahrenheit before mulching. Otherwise, you are insulating cold soil and slowing the plant down. In warmer zones, the sooner you mulch after planting, the better. Once you have your watering rhythm down and your mulch in place, the next thing to think about is how to adjust as the season changes, because what works in early June will not work in late July. In the first 3 to 4 weeks after transplanting, your tomato plant has a small root system and cannot pull from deep soil yet. So during that early window, water more frequently but still deeply, about every 2 to 3 days, with maybe half a gallon per plant. As the plant grows and the roots stretch out, you stretch out the time between waterings. By peak summer, with a fully grown plant carrying fruit, I am usually on a 3 to 5 day cycle with 1 to 2 gallons per plant. When the temperature climbs above 90 degrees Fahrenheit for several days in a row, you might need to bump up to every 2 days, but still keep the volume high. Do not switch back to daily sips. That undoes everything. And if you get a heavy rain, skip your next scheduled watering entirely and check with the finger test before you do anything. More tomatoes are killed by gardeners watering on top of a recent rain than by any drought. As the fruit starts to ripen in late July and August, some experienced growers actually pull back slightly on water to concentrate the sugars and intensify flavor. I do this with my paste tomatoes especially, just enough water to keep the plant from wilting, no more. The fruit comes out richer, denser, and sweeter. Just be careful not to swing too far, because that swing is what causes cracking. Steady and slightly less is the goal, not feast and famine. The final piece of the watering picture is learning to read the plant itself, because the tomato will tell you what it needs if you know what to look for. A healthy, properly watered tomato plant has firm, dark green leaves that hold themselves up nicely in the morning. A mild afternoon droop on a hot day is normal, especially over 90 degrees Fahrenheit. The plant is conserving water by closing its stomata, and as long as it perks back up by evening, you do not need to do anything. What you are watching for is morning wilt. If the leaves are limp at 7 a.m., when the soil should be coolest, that is the plant telling you it ran out of water overnight. Time to soak it deeply. On the other side, if you see lower leaves yellowing from the bottom up while the soil stays consistently wet, that is overwatering, and you need to back off and let things dry out for 2 or 3 days. Curling leaves that look like little tubes can mean heat stress, or it can mean uneven water. Check your soil moisture before you panic. Now let me share a few patterns I see in almost every garden I visit, because these are the conventional habits that the better approach quietly fixes. The first pattern is the daily evening sprinkle. Folks come home from work, grab the hose, and give every plant a quick drink. It feels caring, but it is keeping roots shallow and creating that wet-dry swing we talked about. The fix is to water deeply 2 or 3 times a week instead and trust that the plant has reserves between drinks. The second pattern is overhead watering with a sprinkler or a wand spray. The leaves get drenched, the fruit gets wet, and within a few weeks, every fungal disease in the neighborhood has set up shop. The fix is to keep water at the soil line every single time. If you already have a sprinkler system, run it in the early morning so leaves dry fast, but a soaker hose is a much better long-term answer. The third pattern is watering on a fixed schedule no matter what. Tuesday and Friday, rain or shine. The trouble is, your tomato does not check a calendar. It responds to soil moisture and weather. The fix is the finger test. Use the schedule as a reminder, but let the soil decide. The fourth pattern is panicking after a dry spell and absolutely drenching the plant. That sudden gulp after several dry days is exactly what causes cracking and blossom end rot. The fix is consistency. If you fall behind, water deeply but not desperately, and get back on rhythm. I did every one of these myself for years. None of it makes you a bad gardener. It just means nobody told you the deeper logic of how a tomato actually drinks. Now for the bonus I promised you at the start. And this is the trick that I think is going to change your watering game more than anything else. It is called the buried bottle method, and an old market gardener showed it to me probably 12 years ago. Take an empty 1-gallon plastic jug, like a milk jug or a vinegar jug. Drill or poke 6 to 8 small holes, about the size of a pencil tip, all around the bottom third of the jug. Bury the jug right next to your tomato plant, about 6 to 8 inches away from the main stem, with the neck and cap sticking out about an inch above the soil. Leave the cap off or loose. Now, whenever you water, instead of running the hose at the base of the plant, you fill that jug. The water seeps out through those holes slowly over several hours and goes directly to the deep root zone, exactly where the plant wants it. No evaporation, no runoff, no wet leaves. You can fill a jug in 30 seconds and walk away. I run 2 jugs per plant for the big indeterminates like Brandywine and Cherokee Purple, and 1 jug per plant for determinates and patio types. The first season I tried this, I cut my watering time roughly in half and saw fewer cracked fruit, almost no blossom end rot, and noticeably bigger plants by August. It is also a wonderful way to reuse a piece of plastic that would otherwise hit the recycling bin or the trash. That is the kind of small, thoughtful, low-cost trick that adds up over a season. If you have made it this far, I want to thank you for taking the time, and I want to invite you to take this one step further. Everything I shared today is the kind of practical, hands-on knowledge I've packed into the 30-day kitchen scrap garden protocol. Inside the book, you will find the full 31 crops you can regrow from kitchen scraps, the $10 starter kit guide, so you do not waste a penny on equipment, complete zero-waste kitchen strategies, and the full troubleshooting section that covers watering, light, pests, and timing. It is 171 pages of real, tested guidance for $17. You can grab it by scanning the QR code on your screen or clicking the link below in the description. If you found this video helpful, I would love it if you left a comment letting me know what tomato troubles you have been wrestling with, and please share this with a fellow gardener who might be losing their harvest to the very mistake we just covered. So if you take just one thing away today, let it be this: water your tomatoes like the deep-rooted plants they actually are. Soak them well, mulch them deeply, watch them closely, and trust the rhythm. That 90-pound harvest I told you about at the start was not luck, and it was not a special variety. It was just the right water, at the right depth, on the right schedule. I would love to hear how your plants respond when you try it. Until next time, keep growing.